Hi, I'm going to make some Italian sausage today, and to start with I'm going to trim up the meat and get it ready. Basically what I'm going to do is just cut it into chunks small enough that will fit into my grinder, and then spice it up and let it sit overnight in the refrigerator, and then do the actual sausage stuffing tomorrow. So what I have here is a package of country style ribs. I generally like to use the Boston butt for making my sausage, but couldn't find any in the store today, so this is essentially the same thing. I might have to do a little more trimming. There's a little more silver skin and bad spots on this, but it'll work. I'm sure it'll be just fine. So the first step is to cut it into chunks, at the same time removing any bad spots, silver skin and that kind of thing. And okay, I got my meat cut up into, they're about maybe 1.5 to 2 inch chunks. Seems to be a good size for my particular meat grinder. And then I've got my seasoning mix pre-made here, and I'll read off what's in there. I've done this by weight, so I can give you an approximate equivalent in teaspoons, but I've got 4 grams of fennel seed, and that's about 1.5 teaspoons, and the same amount of ground black pepper. And then I'm going to be smoking this sausage, so I'm using Morton's Tender Quick. Instead of regularly I would use kosher salt and sugar, but I'm substituting the Morton's Tender Quick, which also has a cure in it. And I got about 1 heaping tablespoon, or 24 grams of the Tender Quick in there. And then there's 2 grams of coriander, about 1 teaspoon, the same amount of red pepper flakes, and then I've got 1/4 cup of ice water here. So next step is to get it all in there, sprinkle it on, and then this will sit in the refrigerator overnight, and I will grind and stuff the sausages tomorrow. Then I'll add the 1/4 cup of ice water. And then just using my hand, I'm going to mix it up real good. Okay, then I'm going to put a cover on that, put it in the refrigerator until tomorrow. So we'll see you tomorrow. Okay, it's the next day, and the meat has been in its seasoning mix for just about 22 hours, almost a full day, but not quite. And I got the grinder all set up. This part and this part, anything that touches the meat, were in the refrigerator, so they're very cold. And the next step will be to put the casing, which is in this bowl here. It's a natural hog casing, and that is going to be, it's cleaned, it's been soaking in the water for about 1.5 hours or so. And the next step will be to put it onto the stuffing nozzle here, and just get an end and open it up. It's pretty slippery stuff. And then just slide it on. But I'll finish getting that on, and then get the meat. The meat, by the way, is spread out on one of these trays, and it's in the freezer, so it gets partially frozen before I start grinding. The casing is all on the stuffing nozzle, as you can see here, and I left about 3-4 inches hanging off the back, which I will tie into a knot once I get the the meat going. I'm going to get that out of the freezer right now. You can see it's, I spread it out so that I used to just leave it in the bowl, but I found that the outside was getting frozen and the inside was not doing anything. So I'm going to put it all in the hopper here. I'm actually trying an experiment with this. The usual practice is to grind it first and then put it back through the grinder for stuffing without the cutting disc in. And I'm trying to do it in one step this time. I'm not sure it's going to work, but we're going to soon find out. If it does, it will save one cleanup process, and it'll save a lot of time too. Okay, just about ready to go. I hope this is a good angle. Turn the grinder on and get started. As soon as the meat starts coming out here, I'll stop it and tie a knot in the end. If you tie the knot too soon, you just end up getting full of air and you have a nice big bubble there, which you don't want. In fact, there's still a bubble. But I'll just tie a regular old knot in here, and then I have a needle handy. I'm just going to poke a hole in there to let the remaining air out. And we're ready to go. Turn it back on. So far. It's actually a lot easier when you have two people, one of them putting the meat in and then the other one forming the sausage. But so far this is going pretty good. And when you get to the end, you just pull another few inches off, cut it off, and put a knot in this end. Okay, I form them into links after I stuff it. When I'm doing it by myself, it's just a little easier to do it that way. So to do that, I like to make them long because we eat them in the big hoagie rolls. And so a nice long one like this, and it'll shrink a little bit when it cooks, that will fill up the hoagie roll very nicely. And just twist it off, and then get an equal, roughly equal length, and kind of squeeze it to move the meat over, and twist that one off. I ended up with 10 nice links, and now I'm going to take my needle and go around wherever I see an air bubble. I'm going to poke it so that, because the skin will shrink up just a little bit, and that'll allow the air to get out of there, so you don't have any air pockets. Now, I generally like to just let it sit out in the air to get the casings to dry out just a little bit, and then what I'll do is I'll put it in the refrigerator and let it dry like that for about an hour, and then I'll wrap it up and let it sit overnight, and then tomorrow I'll put it on the smoker. Now there's still quite a bit of meat that didn't come out of the nozzle there and then back into the head of the grinder. That will not go to waste. That will be put into a stew or just frozen for future use, or just maybe I'll just make a nice big patty out of it and have it for dinner tonight. But overall, I gotta say I'm very happy with my experiment, grinding it up and stuffing it in one step. I got nice looking sausages, nice coarse ground, and it was so simple. I mean, it saved a whole step, and the hardest part, of course, is cleaning up, and it saved one cleanup, so I'm real happy with that. I'll be doing that from now on. Okay, it's the next day again, and there they are. They're all pretty well seasoned. Now I've cut them into bits of two links to a length, and I've got these dowel sticks that I cut. They will fit inside my smoker. So the plan is to hang them from the dowel stick like this, and then put them in the smoker so they're hanging when they smoke. That way they'll get the most exposure to the smoke, but yet they won't have marks from the rack. So I'm going to get these loaded into the smoker, and I'll show you what that looks like before I start it. Okay, we're all loaded in, and I've got some cherry wood in the smoker box, which is right down there. Just about 4 ounces of wood should give it plenty of smoke. But as you can see, I have the 10 sausages hung in groups of 2 in the back and 3 in the front. And so the next thing to do is to close her up. And turn it on. I'm going to be smoking this at between 180 and 190, and figuring it's going to take about 3 hours. I'll be looking for internal temp of the sausage to get up to 160, and that means it'll be fully cooked. I am smoking it at a fairly low temperature, which is why I wanted to use the cure in there. So right now I'll just let it go for 2 hours and come back and take its temperature, and we'll be ready to go. I'll show you what it looks like when it's done.
There you have it. It's all done. Smoked Italian sausage, homemade, and boy does it smell good in here, I'll tell you. I'm going to save 2 out for some fantastic Italian sausage sandwiches tomorrow, and then I'll vacuum pack and freeze the rest for later use. But I'm sure looking forward to those sandwiches. Thanks for watching. See you next time.